So in this third video of moving Revit files into Unity for virtual reality or real-time animation, this is the next to last video on this, and again, just looking at a few details to add some immersion to the scene, especially if you're working with the free version of Unity, which isn't going to take you all the way to the virtual reality with the Oculus Rift, but will get you real-time animation. A few things that you want to think about doing, especially in terms of adding light quality to this, and that's beginning to look at adding some point lights in space so that you can start getting some light washes, some gradients across certain surfaces. So in this slide, I already have a sun source, which I usually place those off to the side of the site just so I can see them pretty clearly. And then I also have a sun fill, and you can kind of see the sun fill. I'm giving each one of them a little bit of tonality. The sun, sometimes that's completely white right now. I might give that just a little bit of a yellow color to it. And then the sun fill is usually going up at an angle. And so that's kind of the light bounce off the ground, or more of a fill light that's happening along with the sunlight angled down. But we can also get in and begin adding some light specific to locations that give us a certain quality on the interior spaces or around buildings that we're working on. So in a project like this right here, I might want to add in some lights sort of on these columns, or I might even want to add a light or two inside of this space just to start giving the surfaces a little bit of additional articulation. You know, if I look inside of this, in particular, the surfaces are a little bit flat. And I know I would sort of have some light washing in off this edge and a few things like that. And so there's some really simple things that I can do with lights in Unity to begin getting some effects on those and beginning to again, just give each surface a little bit more definition. And the interesting thing is with Unity, with doing point lights, there's really not a lot of render head. You know, again, if you're familiar with rendering with the mental ray engine, the more artificial lighting you add in, the more the render time is going to go up. And this really doesn't work that way in terms of Unity. So let's start adding a few of those things in. So I'm going to go to Game Object, Create Other, and Point Light. And then I'm just going to move that point light into this area right here. And you can see right off the bat that it definitely has a strong impact on the interior. You know, and if I move that up into the edge, you know, I can look at my shadows. I already know light's coming in along that edge. That just bringing that light up a little bit starts to create a little bit more of a gradient across that surface. And again, it's nothing wildly precise, but just getting that little bit of a gradient across there has a really nice effect. And again, I can bring the size, the area, what right over here is called the range. I can manipulate that on the site by grabbing these little yellow grips and moving them around. I can also change the tonality of the light. In this case, since there's a lot of wood there, I might just give that a little bit of a brown tone, just so that it's not wildly dramatic in terms of that space. And I can also you know, on the Pro version, yeah, it looks like I can actually add. No, I can't add shadows in the free version. So we'll just leave shadows off for right now on that. And let's see here. The next thing is intensity. You know, if I want that to be brighter, I can add that up, or I can keep that turned down. And so lights that I just want to see, again, a little bit of a gradient, something that creates a difference in tone from one edge to another. Typically, I'll just leave it as that. You know, just something simple. And that light icon obviously is not going to show up when I run the display in real. So light that I actually want to be able to see, I'll use a slightly different method with. So for this, I would go Game Object, Create Other, and again a point light. And this time I'm going to position the point light here sort of at this location, right at the columns. And the fastest way to get something positioned exactly where I want it is going to be, you know, using a combination of the different views that I have available to me. You know, so starting at an overhead view to kind of get things positioned roughly in the right spot. And again, I want this light to have a smaller area of influence So I'm going to pull that little globe or ball down. That represents how much area of impact that light has. Let's look at this in the plan view again. Sort of pull that back. So if I actually want this light to be something visible in the scene and not just sort of see the effects of the light, I need to add a lens flare to that light itself. So to do that, right over here under the flare tab, I can click flare, and just to give you an exaggerated sense of what happens, I'm going to use the 50mm zoom as my first option. You can see I've got this sort of massive light bomb going on. So I know that's not exactly what I want. So let's go back to this just small flare. And again, if I select off of that, I just get a little bit of a shine in that area that's going to act in a slightly different way. And knowing, I want this to be sort of something small, I might pull this down to about a 0.5 light. And then what I'm going to do is copy that over, edit, copy, edit, paste, and just position one of those at each column. Edit, copy, edit, paste. And so again, that starts to get a little bit of an additional lighting quality to this. If I hit the play button and start moving across the terrain, and you start getting a little bit of a sense of how the light is going to work across this, and again, a little bit of a better sense of the modeling of the lighting on the inside with that one interior light that I placed, getting us a little bit of light quality washing across that surface. And again, there's more that I should probably do, getting some lighting in that background area in there as well, but we'll leave that as good enough for right now. So the next thing that I want to add is a little bit of sound in this. So as I'm walking through this area, I'm getting a sense of wind, and as I move closer to the edge of this stock pier thing, whatever it is that I've built, I can get a little sense of water moving. So sound objects can't just float in space like a light. They need something to attach themselves to. So with this, I'm going to create an empty object, or what a lot of programs will call a null, and it's just sort of a placeholder that we can attach things to or animate things with or build a hierarchy up with. So this is just a really simple system. With this, I'm going to go create empty, and it's going to come in. The default label is just a game object, and I'm just going to call this ambient sound. And with that selected, I'm now going to go game object, create other, or actually let's go component, audio source. That was what we wanted to do there. And now you can see I've got the ambient sound selected here. And with that selected, when I brought in the new audio source, it's actually attached it to that null or empty object that I named ambient sound. So with that done, I need to add an audio clip to this. So I've got two audio clips, which came from the website Freesound, that I'm going to load into my scene here. So those are birds and light waves. So I'm in my Unity directory right here for the project that I'm working on. I'm going to do new folder, sounds, and grab these two guys, drop them in my sound directory, and then go back into Unity. So I can go to my sound folders, and so with this first one, I just want sort of this ambient bird sound. So I'm just going to drag that sound wave file right to there. And again, I'm going to position this in such a way that it is closer to the starting point. Now, sounds in Unity, the closer I get to that sound object, the louder it's going to get, as a typical setup, as a typical way to start thinking about it. So if I zoom way far out, you can see that this is, that sound object does have a loop overall. It's a little bit tricky to see. If I drag it over the site, you can see that a little bit better. But not unlike a light, there is sort of a sphere of influence over this. So I can make that reasonably small. I want this to be an ambient sound thing, but my site isn't huge, so I can kind of bring that in. and I've got volume and pitch that I can set, and then I also can set some different things on this. I want to play when it starts, and I also want it to continue playing. As you get more advanced at this, you can begin to do some things like trigger it based off of proximity, some things like that. I also can go ahead and put in my base volume and the fall off. Usually the overall effect I'm usually pretty happy with, just setting up this sort of larger sphere of what I want the sound to do. So if I hit play, I start to get some of those bird sounds in the background. I have no idea what the audio is going to pick up on this, so this might be one of those things where you just have to trust me a little bit, but I can definitely hear the birds playing through the laptop on the scene right now. So I'm going to go ahead and hit pause, and let's add in one more audio listener, this time with waves, and I'll do a much smaller area of influence on the sound in this next piece. So I'm going to go game object, create empty, and again I'm going to rename that game object waves, and I'm going to position this close to the end of this little dock piece here, and we'll go component, audio, audio source, and on this one we'll add the light waves. We're going to loop it, and again zooming out, I'm going to grab that area of influence on this guy and make it really close, so I don't actually start hearing the water effect sounds until they get fairly close to the location. So I'm going to drag that all the way in, and then I'm going to locate my object right there close to the edge. And, again, remember you're working in 3D, so make sure you're checking every angle on something like this. Again, from up above, drag that right across. So that should be roughly the right location now. Yeah, there we go. So I could probably go slightly larger with that. So once I get sort of to the edge of this scene, I start hearing the sound effects coming from the edge of the water. So again, if I hit play, as I'm walking through, I can hear bird sounds. As I get closer to this edge, I start actually getting the sound effect of the water rippling as well. So the last thing to begin to discuss with this one So the last piece that we'll cover before moving to VR is going to be exporting this as a file that can play outside of Unity, which is very, very handy. If you're sending this to a client, if you're wanting to put this on a computer, if you want to display this full screen, and also if you want to optimize what we're seeing, have a cleaner file, a nicer looking file, we want to set this up as an executable file to run outside of Unity. And so that process, again, really simple. File, and I'm going to go to Build Settings. Typically, I won't see anything in this scenes, especially if it's the first one that I'm going to build. I'm going to make sure I'm building my active scene, or whatever the most current scene is. So right now I'm working in Unity Video 2. I've saved this file recently. I know I don't have my little asterisk right here, so everything is saved and ready to go. So I'm going to click Add Current to load this video scene in right here, video 3 scene.unity. And that is what I was pointing to just a second ago. I apologize about that. Was Unity Video 2. That's my project. Video 3 scene.unity is my current scene that I'm building. So I'm just going to build this to a PC, Macs, or Linux standalone. And right now my target platform is Windows. I'm going to leave that the basic architecture, 32-bit architecture, and I'm going to click Build. And I'm just going to call this Build Test 2 and save. So it's going to take just a second to compile the scene for me. And now I have Build Test 2 right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and double click on this to run it. It's going to launch in just a second for me here. Hopefully this is going to launch for me. There we go. So there's my Unity Video 2 configuration. I'm going to go ahead and run this as a windowed video. It's just a little bit easier to control. That's something that is on my laptop, not something else. Probably won't have to worry about that. Graphics quality, again, this gives the individual user a chance to set up the resolution that they're working with. I'm going to go ahead and bump this up to fantastic and hope that my laptop does an okay job of running it. And I'm going to click play. So now I've got a completely standalone file that I can navigate through, that I can send to whoever I need to. This is obviously still built in Unity, but this is now a file that doesn't require Unity to be able to run, to be able to set this up. And that is getting files from Unity and then output as something that is standalone.